All right, how's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a good day or afternoon or evening so far. This is going to be just a quick video on divination, runecasting, stuff like that. I'm not going to get into every form of divination that I do. The first form of divination that I did was staring at how the rain collected on the ground as a child. So there's many ways you can scry and divine different things. But this video, we are going to talk about rune casting and how I perform my specific rune casting. Now, there are a few different ways to do this, and there are a few different ways that I do it myself. But this is not a method that I've seen covered anywhere else. You have the method where you draw one rune out of like a bag or a satchel, right? Then you can draw like 2 or 3. You can draw 8. You can draw 24. Whatever you want to do. There's different methods, but this is not one that I had seen covered. So we are going to cover it. Now here is magical symbols. So beware if you don't like to look at just random symbols. So this is the rune plate that I use. I found this at Goodwill. Not like this. It was just the wooden plate. I did all of the inscriptions myself, and eventually may carve, but for now this works for me. And this is just chalk marker. I cast the runes on there. They sit on there just fine. It barely ever scrapes the paint, but I sort of take it whenever it gets scraped up as, okay, time to re-enchant the plate, you know? So you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. I got this for like $2 or $3 at a thrift shop. And it's not very cumbersome at all. It works perfectly. So the reason that I'm showing you this is because of these 4 corners that I have set up here. Now these 4 corners are marked with 3 lines, not just for the Norns, but for the 3 Aetir, the mother or priestess tier, the king or mystic it, and then the warrior it, so to speak. These are the 3, if you take all 24 runes, they line up in 3 rows of 8. Depending on which row they belong to, this can affect the divination. This can affect the meditation. If you're noticing all warrior runes, or if you're noticing a lot of mother runes, that can affect something. But the other reason that I'm showing you this is because I use these corners. Now, the way that I used to do this at first was I would use those corners in relation to the quarters and the directions and the elements. But most of the time these days, what I do is I will get my runes, and I'm not going to go into the charging process quite yet. The how I like infuse the runes with my energy and whatnot. But what I do after I guess it doesn't take that long. I'll go ahead and go over it. So what I do is I literally just sit here with the runes cupped, spread out in my hand and cupped. And I just breathe in, and sort of as I exhale, I just bring the energy down into my hands, into the runes. And they will also collect your body heat. So that is another thing. And then after a few breaths, I twist my hand like this, which sort of stirs the runes a little bit. And then I do like 3 more breaths like this. And then just breathing that focus down into the stones or the bones or the wood, whatever you use. And if a rune falls out, then I do sort of take that as a sign typically. That was the weird rune, oddly enough. And just a tip for the weird rune, what I've done is I've taken a little Dremel tool and I have scratched on there so that I can tell that it's not just a reversed rune, or one that's flipped over rather. So yeah, go ahead and warm these up. And then what I do is I will just sort of scoop into my hand and just drop them until I have one left. And so I will take that one. This one is Berkanau or Berkanaz. There are different. That's another thing. We're not going to get into all the pronunciations of the runes. I'm just going to use the ones. This is Berkanau. And I will put it in the top left corner where that circle is. And then I will draw another one. This one is Iwaz. Okay, it goes in the top right corner. Then I draw another one. This one is Ansuz. Okay. And Isa. Okay. Now, one of the things that you can do, more symbols, I have recently taken up the study of geomancy. And while I know that geomancy isn't always necessarily the study of how stones land into various shapes, I have noticed various geomantic figures often enough when I'm casting runes that I've had an interest in learning it. So, we are also going to at least bring up the idea of considering whether or not you want to also do that as well. Now, the meanings of these runes. Berkanau or Berkanaz, Iwaz or Iwar, Ansuz or Ansur, and Isa or Isan. They have different meanings. So Berkanau typically I think of as a pregnant woman or birth. It can also come to represent family. Iwaz I think of as a yew tree. So I think of like meditation, Odin's hanging, his meditation, his isolation. Okay, it's also the rune is sort of bilateral. I don't think that's the right word, but it when it's upside down, it looks exactly the same. So here's Odin, and then he turns himself on the tree, and it's the same. So yeah, meditation, yew tree. Typically for Ansuz, I think advice. Ansuz to me means mouth. It even looks like someone's mouth. And then Isa is typically ice, which to me represents delay. And depending how the rune lands, it's the type of delay. Is it an external delay that's being imposed upon you? Or is it a time where you need to delay? And in that sense, it sort of relates to Nauthi's, which I take as neglect, which means you need to observe. Okay, so there is some relation in these runes. So I have sort of in the top left corner here. Let's see if I can actually move the camera down and make it to where you can actually see what is happening as well. Okay, so here we are. This is maybe not the most advantageous angle. I apologize, but we're gonna make do. Okay, so now I will probably go ahead and drop these the way that I normally do, but it's probably going to be extremely loud on the camera. So if they just land and you're like, what happened? I didn't want to mute or deafen you guys. So I will typically sit here after they've been warmed and chosen, charged and chosen, you might say. I will just dump randomly half of them in each hand. And then I will sit here and sort of just meditate, clear my mind. Another thing that you can do is you can turn these 4-quarter runes into like a sort of mantra or word of power. Um, this would be like ba, e, a, we, bawi. So you could intone that if you wanted to, but yeah. Or you could chant the runes. Yeah, either way. We're just going to do a really quick one. I'm not going to try to get too into this. So, we'll cast the runes. One of them didn't even leave my hand, and this is Wunyo, so this means joy. So what I will do is I will drop this one separately. Okay, now, it hit Yebo, which means gift, and landed next to this rune here, which is upside down, which is Kenaz, which typically means a torch or a hearth, relates to warmth and comfort. So, that is an auspicious sign, as far as I'm concerned. Here we have Ingus, which to me is like an arrow, and it represents movement and focus, but it can also mean other things, okay? So, moving around here, the Ingus, the movement, okay, is sitting here right next to Iwas, which I said to me means meditation. So that means that I need to be moving toward meditation in this sense, as opposed to perhaps like more community affairs and things like that. It didn't land over here near Birkenau, which is, gestation. It landed over here next to meditation. And this Ingus is right next to an upside down manaz, or mana, which means mankind. So, that means that to me, that's so funny. That means to me, I need to focus a little bit more on meditation and a little bit less on community, which makes sense because I have been making a lot of videos lately, but that's sort of my process. I will sort of gestate for maybe like 9 months or so, and then I'll spend 3 months making videos typically. Or that's at least how it's been the last 2 cycles. Moving down, we have Wunyo, I said, and it's next to here to advice. It's next to the Kenaz rune upside down, which means it's less about getting joy from comfort and more about getting joy from speaking and communicating with someone or something. Now, because of the way that this landed here, it's probably not a material person. It's probably an inner communication, or one of my guides or guardians, so to speak. We got a lot of stuff going on down here, okay? First of all, we have the weird rune, which that typically relates to right here, right now. That's the fate rune. So right here, right now, we have Perthro, or that's how I say it, is Perthro. That is, to me, a womb or a cup. It represents mystery. Then we have Awaz, which is not Iwaz, it's Awaz. This is, I think of as like a horse. This represents progress. We have Uruz, which is I almost said an orc, which is an auroch, which was a sort of wild. So we have Fehu, or Feu, which is a cattle, but then we have Uruz, which is an auroch. They are very similar. One is tamed, one is wild. The Fehu is the tamed cattle. That's part of why it represents wealth. Uruz is the wild bull. It is strength. It also looks like a gate, so freedom. Yeah. Then we have Odal or Othala, which represents to me ancestry, heritage, but also possessions. Not in like a wealth sense, but like the things that you keep around and that you use, the things that, not hand-me-downs necessarily, but like the things that you look to when it comes to your day-to-day life, things like that. Okay, so because we have strength, progress, a womb, and ancestry, that means to me that the communication is typically, or not typically, is probably going to come from ancestry, which is interesting because I've been planning a Nutasita lately. So perhaps I will take that as an ancestral pilgrimage, so to speak. This upside down or reversed rune here is Algiz, which to me is an elk. It represents influence. So the fact that it's upside down to me represents inward influence as opposed to outward. And the reverse runes can mean different things, but we're just going to keep it basic for this one. Also, where they land on this stave here also has some relevance. This is how I use the directions. So north is earth for me, east is wind, south is fire, and west is water. So we can get into that after this. Now, we have Laguz here, which to me, typically I think of as a lake, but it can relate to memory and intuition, being receptive. So this over here, because it is south of this line here, I'm going to call it to this quarter here. So yeah, oh, and also Isa here, meaning ice, meaning delay, relates perfectly to the meditation, the mystery, the womb, all of that. And it's perfectly working around as far as I can tell, as far as the relevance goes. So next to Laguz, we have Raido and Fiu. So, Raido, typically, I think of as like a wagon or a cart. It represents like a journey. And then Fiu, like I said, is wealth. So it looks like I need to maybe take a few less clients over the next couple weeks and go on an inward journey, which I could just be... This reading I could just be what do you call it? Just verifying my own perspective or whatever, but it doesn't seem like that to me. So moving on, we have near Berkanau, we have two reversed runes. So in relation to gestation, we have Yera, which I tend to think of as year and harvest and cycles and things like that. And then Hegel or Hagalaz is hail. That typically represents like a storm. So, if I were wanting to try to do anything related to like family or trying to produce something in this week, or if I did the casting for the moon phase, I would say maybe for the moon phase. This is literally just for today. Just doing a brief reading, but it does have relevance to what I've been planning, so that's interesting. So I would maybe think about, okay, maybe today's not the best day because I've got reversed harvest and hail. So, don't be out in the hail trying to scythe your corn or whatever. Okay, here toward the center we have Yebo, which means gift, and Savulo, or Sawilo. Savulo and Yebo. And toward the center is a pretty good thing to me. Yebo is like a gift, or Gabo is like a gift. Trying to think of how else you could interpret that. Fortune. So like where Fiu is like wealth, that you have accumulated and amassed, Yebo can be like a windfall. And Savulo to me, I think of as light. Savulo to me represents the sun or a lightning bolt. It can be inspiration in a different sense than some of the other runes. Then we have Tyr in the center here, which is victory to me, or a spear. I think it represents a spear to me, but typically it's the thrusting forward and the piercing of the focus of the target, so to speak. The spear hits its mark. Then we have 3 reversed runes right here at the center. Now, the thing about the reversed runes is you don't most of the time I will not even consider them for the reading. But I want to share the meanings of these runes with you. So like these 3 runes in the center, a lot of times I would just take they're not relevant to the reading. But I want to go ahead and share some of the meanings. Now these I said represents like necessity, or sorry, neglect. But I guess it also does represent necessity. But it's typically like things have been neglected, and you need to really pay attention and observe what's going on. Then we have Dagaz, which to me represents like the dawn, like a breakthrough, so to speak. And Thurisaz, or Thorn, represents, well, a thorn. But it can also represent just a protective force. Depending on where it lands and how it lands, it can represent a thorn in your side, or it can represent the thorns that are protecting the rose that is your progress, right? So, overall, this is a pretty auspicious reading. If I were doing this for a client, I would say things seem to be going well, but you need to take a little bit more time for yourself. Which is kind of funny because I just made this new thing here. It says take time for yourself. So, and I made it for this video because I've been changing these little signs that I leave up for you people that are watching, but I guess that one's kind of hard to read. Yeah, anyway, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you know what? Let's look around here. So I was just about to put this away, and I did notice there is one spot where there is a geomantic figure, and it's kind of hard to see. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so we have here, I'm just going to put the phone back down here. We have here this formation right here. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, if you look here, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now this is interesting because that is the figure of Amicio, which means loss. Now, what are the runes that are related to this figure? Oh, you know what though? Where it is, it's 2, 1, 2, 1. Which I was wondering because I was like, that is completely the antithesis of what the reading was telling me. But because this is the bottom here, and I read left to right, I would say this is 2, 1, 2, 1. Now, we trick ourselves like this sometimes, but I don't think that's what's going on in this case. So, 2, 1, 2, 1 is actually acquisitio, which is acquisition and gain and acquiring. So, that is a very auspicious sign as well. So, anyway, I'm going to move you back up here. This has been a very brief crash course on how I do my specific rune castings. If you would like to stick around for a little bit longer, I can go ahead and go over the meanings of the runes with you, just sort of in order. So, actually, I've got this card somewhere. Where did I put it? I've got a card somewhere. Did I let my partner borrow it? Maybe it's under here. There it is. Okay, so this card here, I might be able to just show so that you can screenshot it. But really the only problem with this card is I wrote vagina instead of womb, which, yeah, they are different. They are different. But I was writing these down very, very quickly, so please forgive me. I do know the difference. But if I do this, I can save some time. Okay. Now, remember, womb as opposed to vagina. It's a little bit more apropos, I think. But those meanings will work for now. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them below. Have a good rest of the day, good rest of the week, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.